As Europe gets closer to becoming a federal union, where liberty for the most part prevails, and where citizens can cross borders without any checks, as well as republics dominate the political scene of the continent, the European Union, as a supranational economic union functioning as a semi-parliamentary republic, surprisingly still has 6 countries that are monarchies. And although their old feudal ways of governing are long over, it's quite obvious that this way of governing has, for the past 150 years, been slowly declining as a result of numerous catastrophic wars, constantly changing the socio-political framework of the continent. In this modern and ever more globalizing world, the word monarchy is largely thought as an outdated and unfeasible way of governing, and frankly, a thing of the past, with no sensible standing in the modern world. So let's explore the origins of these opaque and unique monarchies, and the reason why they still exist to this day. From the Roman Republic to the modern United States and all the rest in between, republics have constantly been evolving throughout history, though the way of governing has always remained the same. We use the words republics and monarchies almost interchangeably, but it's essential to know their origin and the concept behind them. Athenian democracy is known as the first ever democracy known to the world. In a democratic republic, the power is vested in the people, which was the case. Well, if you weren't a slave, that is. Monarchy is the oldest form of government, and it prevailed in the ancient world, and can be traced to ancient Egypt and Sumeria. But there are really 2 forms of monarchies, absolute and ceremonial. Same with a republic. A monarchy and a republic have one main difference, the head of state being elected and the head of state being born into the job. A constitutional monarchy is near identical to a ceremonial republic, and an absolute monarchy is near identical to an absolute republic. Monarchs, generally speaking, have a bad tendency to be interventionists, which will result in resistance. This is exactly what happened in 1920 when Danish King Christian X protested against the government for not reclaiming enough land from Germany after the First World War, which would result in protests. So the king eventually agreed to install a caretaker government that would then hold a general election. No Danish monarch has ever interfered in politics ever since, and the Danish royal family nowadays seems to be at peace with the public, with the family support being the highest in Europe. Even Republican sympathetic Sweden, where the Social Democrats have a stronghold in the country's politics, never fully opposed monarchy. And why would that be? Well, the Swedish royal family remains neutral in politics and foreign affairs, which generally speaking seems to be the case for almost every European monarchy, with obvious exceptions. Perhaps a life hack of some sort for monarchies. However, the most famous example is the United Kingdom, also known as England. The modern-day constitutional monarchy, which limits the political power of the monarch and lets the people decide who will be in charge of the country, came into existence after a 5-year Cromwell-led dictatorship with the Glorious Revolution, but the republic eventually got overthrown by William II of Orange after a successful invasion. The battle between republicanism and monarchism has been a point of mass consensus, with the latter becoming more prevalent in the early modern period. However, since the end of the First World War, many monarchies either collapsed or just lost the war and then split up into various other countries that became countries in their own right. Others became socialist republics. And so now Europe is left with 12 constitutional kingdoms. These modern monarchies that withstood the 20th century and 19th centuries are divided into 2 broad classes: pre-modern states and those who sprang out of the Napoleonic Wars. From Greece to Russia, whether the fall of a monarchy may be a vote or a result of a bloody revolution after a massive war, calls for the abolition of Europe's monarchies were widespread since the development of republicanism in the 17th and 18th centuries during the Age of Enlightenment. However, when a certain anti-monarchist Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of France in 1804, the post-Napoleonic European restoration reaffirmed the monarchical balance of power in the continent. In subsequent decades, monarchism would be on the decline, with the rise of liberalism, nationalism, and later, after the Industrial Revolution, socialism. That would later, after the First World War, result in the Russian Civil War, with later the execution of the Romanov family. The revolutions of 1848, where the Germans, Hungarians, Italians, Polish, and Romanians were calling for national unity, were largely inspired by republicanism. Most of Europe's monarchies were abolished during or following World War I or World War II, and the remaining monarchies were transformed into constitutional monarchies, that you can see on this map. And then, following the Second World War, the Italian monarchy was superseded by a republic in a constitutional referendum. The Greek case oversaw a military junta abolish the monarchy, though this obviously wasn't a democratic transition. Republican movements in Europe remain active to present, though the political clout is only limited to European monarchies. Following the death of Queen Elizabeth II, there was a bit of an uproar on whether it is feasible and even practical to continue the monarchy. As the economic situation in Britain gets worse and standard of living decreases and gets substantially higher, many have questioned this old hereditary way of governing. Only the outcome of this decade will decide the future of the British monarchy. Yeah, the future is looking pretty bright if I say myself. However, in Denmark, where the future of its monarchy isn't as bleak as in Britain, a large majority of the population are in favour of preserving the monarchy. Why would that be? Well, the monarchy generally seems to be on favourable terms with the Danish population, because the family represents the country at various delegations, and they visit Greenland, and the Faroe Islands, and the football. Same opinions are held in Norway, with its royal family being more popular than ever, with some 80% of Norwegians supporting the monarchy. So does majority Social Democratic Sweden, and although it has a republican-style constitution, it has never taken any steps to abolish monarchy. Opinion polls during the past 50 years show us that just over 50% of people support the monarchy, about 25% support a republic, and the other quarter remain undecided. In Belgium, it all depends on the region. As in the French-speaking Walloon region, the support for the monarchy is more than in the Flemish region, and in the Netherlands, the support for the monarchy seems to be on a decline. In these two cases that I just covered, the monarchy of each country seems to be divided, whether regionally or generationally. The decades to come for monarchies will be a deciding factor for their future. From new populations migrating to Western Europe, generations superseding the ones of the past, or political parties dying out and others being created, the resultant future for monarchies in Europe will be mixed, and will be quite interesting to say the least.